What do you think, Congressman Schock, about the motivation of the White House here? Because clearly they're going against the will of the people. Clearly they're going against the courts. What do they hope to gain out of this?
Well, what's new? In the last year and a half, that's kind of been par for the course with this administration, from their agenda on health care and the stimulus to now them trying to push cap and trade once again. Let's remind ourselves, the administration, the president himself, chastised the U.S. Supreme Court in his own State of the Union address on campaign finance law. So why wouldn't we think that after he had been shot down, after he had been embarrassed, and after he had been told he was wrong by the court systems, that he would go back yet again and try and defy that other branch of government, the system of checks and balances.
Though, Congressman, are you saying that he is putting his own personal pride ahead of a political calculation or a legal calculation?
Absolutely. I don't know what's new in this moratorium, other than it focuses more on offshore drilling. But the reality is, the courts clearly said that he's basically changing the rules in the middle of the game. Yeah. And as far as a political calculation, it's absolutely outrageous that he would do this to the Gulf Coast, a place where he and now Michelle this weekend spent a considerable amount of time down there trying to get people to invest, trying to get people to travel down there and spend money, all while they're trying to take jobs away from the very people they say they're going to help, and also spread this disaster beyond the coast of the Gulf and all across the country in higher energy prices as they try and make us buy more and more of our crude oil from foreign sources.
Well, Monica, let me just go to you for a second here, because this is a strange moment when personal pride is put ahead of political calculations. We've seen it before. You worked for a man, arguably, who did that, Richard Nixon.
It all comes back to Nixon, right?
But it never turns out pretty when a politician does it.
No, it doesn't.
Not only for himself, but for his home his party.
Look, on this moratorium deal, Obama has now overruled 4 federal judges. This is so Hugo Chavez, okay? We have a system of checks and balances in this country where the judiciary is there to make judgments, but they can't enforce the judgments. Right. They rely on the political system. They rely on the people then to go in and enforce their judgments.
Who's going to enforce at least? Who's going to enforce these
Not unless
rescinding of the bans?
We now have to have another federal judge, a whole appellate judge panel come back and say, there's nothing different in this moratorium. It's out.
How long is that going to take?
It really only should take a couple of days. I mean, I know we usually think of judges and we think it's going to be a long, long time.
You could accelerate.
Yes, you could accelerate. And the general rule is 3 times and you're out with a moratorium.
And you know what? The administration is running out the clock, right? Because they put this 6-month moratorium into play.
Yeah, but it's going to
expire November 30th, but none of these drillers can move because of the uncertainty. So even though the lifting of the ban is stayed by the judges, they still can't do anything. And now we're seeing these rigs
We all know
that
in the back scene that it wasn't just 6 months. They were talking about up to 18 months.
All right, ladies, thank you very much. Congressman, you're coming back because the ladies demanded it. They were sending notes to each other about what a hunk you are. I'm sorry, ladies. We explained it all here on Scoreboard.
We love Aaron Schocks.
You're going to be coming back, Congressman. We'll see you. Well, have you seen the signs all over the country? They're touting spending stimulus dollars, trillions of your dollars. Now, the signs cost up to $10,000 a pop. Total price tag running into tens of millions, but it's not just about the money. There is a bigger problem with the stimulus signs, and our next guest wants them stopped. Back with us, Republican Congressman Aaron Schocks of Illinois. So I do want to know first about the money. How much does each one of these signs cost?
Well, David, every state's different. In my state of Illinois, our state Department of Transportation has been pumping them out at about $300 to $600 a piece. We found some signs in the country that have cost well over $10,000 a piece. The worst part, of course, is in each construction project, each repaving section, they'll have up to 6 signs just for each section of paving. But the thing is it's not only the money.
I know, but
these are people that are environmentally.
I'm not finished, Congressman, with the money angle first, because I just saw a bunch of these signs on I-95 driving up to Massachusetts. Why is it that in one place they're $300, another place they're $10,000? I think there might be some corruption at work here.
I guess it depends on your taste by state. The Department of Transportations are really the ones charged with manufacturing them. And we've actually gotten copies of the documents that the federal government sends to the states, and it clearly spells out how big the logo has to be, how the logo is an emblem of President Obama's commitment to spending taxpayer dollars wisely, which is almost an oxymoron that we'd be using the money to make these signs. But some of them are basic sheet metal, and others are quite significant in terms of their structure. We've seen some just down the road here from the Capitol that are quite massive, almost billboard-like.
Okay, now I know you've been dying to get this point out, but the propaganda angle. Now, we should mention that during the 1930s, when FDR engaged in the same kind of sort of stimulus spending that we see now, to no avail, we should emphasize, because the Depression did not end as a result of that stimulus. We saw the same kind of propaganda, the same kind of signs all over America. So it's happened before.
Well, but it's ridiculous. Can you imagine? First of all, it's an insult to the intelligence of the taxpayers to suggest that we need to tell them that a public works project, that a road project, is their tax money at work. Think if every unit of government did that. If your local school board, if your township officials, if your city government said this sidewalk being paid for by X city, the amount of overhead and unnecessary expense that would be coming in addition to the already costly public work projects that you all pay for with your tax money. It's ridiculous, but it is. It's the same propaganda, narcissism, self-aggrandizing promotional stuff that's indicative of the Obama administration. But my taxpayers are outraged. Why? Because this was supposed to be the biggest infrastructure investment since Eisenhower was president. Those were the president's words. And yet the bill, when it finally passed, had less than 8% of the money going to infrastructure. And now we find of the 8% that went to infrastructure, nearly $100 million of it is going to be spent on these crazy signs that, I might add, in 2 years are going to be in a landfill somewhere.
Right.
How is that environmentally safe? How is that environmentally sensitive?
And it doesn't lower unemployment. I mean, the point is that what happened in the 1930s, they had all these jobs programs. They ended up with just as high unemployment at the end of the 30s as they did in the beginning of the 30s. So it doesn't work. But bottom line, do you think that it's fooling anybody? The American people in the 30s didn't have the kind of communication we had now, the internet, people like Andrew Breitbart. I think now people are more aware of the foolishness of propaganda. No?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, look, here's what we know. They've already spent over $20 million on these signs. From the year since the stimulus bill has passed, well over half of the American people say they are adamantly opposed to the stimulus bill. The latest polling shows 6 out of 10 Americans are unhappy and have no confidence in the president's leadership. So, you know, whether they spend $10 million or, in this case, $20 million on signs to try and self-promote, it hasn't worked. At the end of the day, people are looking at the unemployment line, they're looking at the unemployment numbers, and they're looking at their own job situation, realizing, folks, we're not any better a year and a half later. And it's not going to be more government spending or more signs to tell you about the government spending that's going to get us out of this rut. It's going to be private sector jobs when they feel certain, as you said earlier in your program, about the rules of engagement, the private sector.
Congressman Schock, terrific stuff.